Hello and welcome to today's video. I'll be discussing everything you need to know about price discrimination. So let's launch into what we have. Now, first of all, I'll be explaining some key terms on price discrimination, and we'll be looking at the terms one by one as we go on. So now, the first thing you need to know about price discrimination is that it's simply the process whereby firms charge different prices to different buyers for the same product. Now, price discrimination is just a situation whereby if we have a particular product, for example, we can have a mobile phone as a product, and that particular mobile phone is sold for different prices to different buyers. That is simply price discrimination. That same mobile phone is sold for different prices to different individuals. We can have individual A, we can have individual A and individual B. Now, for this particular, and we have a mobile phone, this same mobile phone here is sold to individual A and B at different prices. That is simply price discrimination. So now, I hope you get the quick illustration. So let's move on to another thing you need to know about price discrimination. Now, before price discrimination can occur, there are three conditions that must be fulfilled. So we have price discrimination, fine. But before it can occur, there are certain conditions that must be fulfilled. And don't forget that this price discrimination can only occur in a monopoly market where there is only a single seller of a particular product. That is when price discrimination can occur. So there are further conditions that must be fulfilled before price discrimination can actually occur. So the first thing is that the markets must be separated into sub-markets. So now, for price discrimination to occur, for example, we have two individuals. Now, these two individuals can come from different socioeconomic background, from different location, from different countries, or from different neighborhood. There must be two sub-markets. They must be separated into sub-markets. Now, price discrimination cannot occur when we have two individuals in the same geographical area. It cannot happen because there will be a form of arbitrage. Arbitrage is reselling a particular product to another. So it can only occur when there are two separate sub-markets. Like for example, we have foreign and domestic markets. So those are the two sub-markets. We have England and we have Nigeria, for example. Nigeria is a domestic market and England is a foreign market. You want to sell a particular product to England for a particular price and it's sold to people in Nigeria at a different price entirely. That is price discrimination. So now the second thing that needs to be pointed out, or the conditions that must be fulfilled before price discrimination can occur, is that the price elasticity of demand differs from one market to another. First of all, they should be separate markets. Another thing is price elasticity. Now, what is price elasticity? Degree of responsiveness of demand to changes in prices. How these two markets respond to changes in prices. That is price elasticity. So now, price discrimination can occur when, for example, a particular market can respond to changes in prices than the other markets. But this second condition, the price elasticity of demand differs from one market to another. That is, in a particular market, they must respond to prices more than the other markets. So the two markets that are separated, they must not have the same price elasticity, or else price discrimination cannot occur. So they must have different price elasticity of demand. That is, they must respond differently to changes in prices. That is the only way price discrimination can occur. So now let's move on to the next point, another condition that must be fulfilled. So the third condition is that the product or service are such that cannot be resold from a lower price elasticity market to a higher price elasticity market. Now, first of all, we have separate submarkets. The second thing is that their degree of responsiveness must be different. Another thing is that this market should be separated so much that they should not be reselling from a market where they respond less than the other. Now, for example, let me paint a scenario now. For example, I cited two individuals when we started this video. We have individual A and we have individual B, and a particular phone is sold to different individuals at different prices. Now, this individual A can respond to changes in price of the phone than individual B. And since they respond to changes in prices of the phone, the monopolies can charge lower price to individual A. And since the individual B respond less, the monopoly can charge higher price. Now, the markets, they must not be reselling in such a way that they should be separated so that they will not be reselling from someone that responded high to changes in price to the person that responded low to changes in price. I hope you get that. So if you do not get my explanation, you can rewind the video to actually get my explanation and how I explain better. So now let's move on to the next segment. I'll be explaining the equilibrium and the price discrimination, and I'll be using this particular graph to explain. Now, looking at this particular graph here, we have the vertical axis, which is the price, and we have the horizontal axis, which is the quantity. And although when we discussed the monopoly, we had the marginal revenue curve and demand curve, and I said that the marginal revenue curve is twice as steep as the demand curve, and the condition for profit maximization under the markets, either perfect or monopoly, is that MR must be equal to MC. That is the profit maximizing outputs. Now, the equilibrium, so this particular graph is showing the graph of two different markets. So I will show you shortly. Now, this is the marginal revenue of the first market, and this is the demand curve of the first market. This is the marginal revenue of the second market, and this is the demand for the second market. For the first market, this is the price a particular product is sold, and this is the quantity of the product sold. Q1 and P1 and P1 and Q1 is the price and quantity of the first market, which at this equilibrium, let's call it C. Let's call this place C. This is the point of the first market. Now, for the second market, this is the point of the second market where we have the price, the price 2 and the quantity 2 for the second market, and you can see that this is the demand curve for the second market. And price discrimination is just that we want to join these two markets together to form an aggregate summation, and an aggregate summation happens at this point. This is the aggregate summation of the two markets. This is our MC curve, which is the marginal cost curve, and this is the aggregate summation when the two markets join together. So at the price PM and quantity QM. So this is the point of intersection. This is the point of intersection for the demand, and this is the point of intersection of the marginal revenue. So now, the equilibrium condition for price discrimination is when our MR of the first market is equal to our MC. So looking at this our explanation, it could be observed that these two markets have the same cost of production. Now, the reason why they have the same cost of production is because don't forget that we only have just one product, and that one product is produced at a particular cost. But what differs is different individuals selling to different individuals at different prices and at different price elasticity. So both marginal revenue will be always equal to a common cost, a common marginal cost for price discrimination. They will always have a common marginal cost, unlike when we get to the multi-plant monopoly, we can have several marginal costs, but for price discrimination, they always have a common marginal cost. So I hope you get the whole illustration. So for equilibrium points of the price discrimination, our MR of the first product, of the first demand, is always equal to a common marginal cost. So I hope you get the whole thing. So now let's move on to the next segment of this video, and we'll be looking at the kinds of price discrimination. So we have three kinds of price discrimination. The first is first degree price discrimination, and it is also called the perfect price discrimination. Now the second one is the second degree price discrimination, and the third one is the third degree price discrimination. So I want you to pay attention as I go on in explaining each of these kinds of price discrimination, and it will help you understand it more. So now the first degree price discrimination. Now I'll be taking a look at each of the points under it, and I'll be explaining as we go on. Now it is also known as the perfect price discrimination, like I said earlier. That's another name for the first degree price discrimination. It's also known as the perfect price discrimination, and also it means that the monopoly sells different units of output for different prices, and these prices may differ from one person to another. Now let me explain. Now we have individual A and individual B, like I explained earlier, and for individual A, he or she wants to demand for, or both individuals wants to demand for example, a particular individual wants to demand for rice, a certain quantity of rice, let's say a bag of rice, and the other individual wants to demand for an half bag of rice. And each of these quantities are sold for different prices, and these prices differ from one person to another. That is perfect price discrimination. And the first degree price discrimination has to do with selling a product at the exact price that each customer is willing to pay. Now, when I say each customer is willing to pay, here we are talking about consumer surplus. For you to understand this first degree price discrimination, you need to really understand the concept of consumer surplus. And consumer surplus is just saying that it's just the differences between the amount a particular consumer is willing to pay for a particular product and the amount he actually paid. That is consumer surplus. So now the first degree has to do with selling a product at the exact price that each customer is willing to pay. At this point, the monopolist was able to gather some information about the customer to know the amount he or she is willing to pay and try to rip off the surplus from the consumer. Now, for example, I might be a seller that sells a particular product, and you are the buyer. Now, I already know the amount you are willing to pay. So as a monopolist, since I know you don't have any choice of buying it because I am the sole seller of that product, I actually set my price to the price you are willing to pay. So at that point, I've ripped you off all the surplus and I've increased my profits. So that is simply first degree price discrimination. And in this situation, the monopoly identifies the demand of each customer and charges a different price to every customer. So now, the price I'm willing to pay for a particular product is different from the price another person is willing to pay. So what the monopolist wants to do at that particular point is to identify the demand for each customer and charge the exact price they are willing to pay. That is first degree price discrimination. The monopolists rip off the surplus of the customer, which eventually leads to profits. Now, the monopolist here, due to the information he was able to get, and charged the charged the consumer the exact price they are willing to pay, their surplus has been ripped off. So the monopolist actually got the producer surplus together with the consumer surplus together. I hope you get that. So if you have any question on the first degree price discrimination, please drop it in the comment section as we move on to the second degree price discrimination. Now, the second degree price discrimination. So now, due to the idea of the second degree emerged from the fact that consumers tend to pay less for every additional units consumed. So due to the law of diminishing marginal utility. Now, so this second degree, I feel this second degree price discrimination actually counters the first degree, because now the idea of the first degree is that the monopolists try to identify the demand of each individual and try to rip off their surplus. But here, the second degree is saying that the more a particular product is consumed by a particular consumer, they tend to pay less due to the law of diminishing returns, because the law of diminishing returns says that the more you consume a particular commodity, it gets to a point that the additional consumption of that commodity decreases your satisfaction. And at the point where your satisfaction is decreased, you tend to buy less of that commodity. So you pay less. So what does this price second degree, how can this second degree be actually can be achieved? So what second degree is saying is that it is impossible to identify the willingness of every consumer to pay for a particular commodity, because the more they consume a particular commodity, the more they pay less. So it will be very difficult to know what they are actually willing to pay, because at that point they are not interested anymore. So how can we actually use this second degree price discrimination? So here, monopoly tend to offer different quantities for different prices of the same product. That is what the monopolies do here. So they offer different quantities for different prices. That is what the second degree is talking about. Unlike the first degree, where the monopolies rip off the consumer surplus of the customer. But here, the monopoly tends to offer different quantities for different prices of the same good. So now, this one actually explains better. For example, you want to buy 3 cups of rice. It's a particular price for it. You want to buy 1 kg of rice. There's a particular price for it for the same rice. So this second degree price discrimination is actually straightforward and makes sense. Now, moving forward to the degree. So while perfect price discrimination, that is the first degree price discrimination, entails offering the same goods to different individuals at different prices, The third degree discrimination is group oriented. Now, this third degree is more like the first degree, but since first degree is talking about different individuals, the third degree is talking about different groups. So it involves offering the same goods at different prices to different groups of individuals. For example, first class and business class airline. Now, this happens when you board a when you are trying to travel from a place and you board a plane. The price for first class plane is different from the price for the business class. So, and they are in the same plane, but the prices are different. So that is third degree discrimination. And these are goods and services in which students are asked to pay lower price, while government workers are asked to pay a higher price for the same goods or services. I hope you got so much value from this video. If you did, please smash the like button, and also please subscribe to this channel for more videos. See you on the next one.